Hello, I'm Luther Young and my pronouns are he, him. First, I thank the National Benevolent Association for this invitation. I'm honored to share a few thoughts to consider on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, especially when it comes to LGBTQIA plus individuals. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, not just as a member of the LGBTQIA plus community, but as a pastor, a teacher, and a nonprofit leader. I pastor the Lighthouse Church of Chicago, a church that is primarily comprised of Black and other LGBTQ plus individuals of color. I currently serve as moderator of the Disciples LGBTQ Plus Alliance, also known as Alliance Q, and a professor in the School of Theology at Boston University, where my work centers on the experiences of Black LGBTQ plus individuals. Over the past few months, it has been incredibly challenging as a pastor, as a teacher, as a community leader, to see the fear, to see the harm that has been caused since the inauguration of the current administration. Things are incredibly difficult for many organizations and educational institutions as cuts to funding have been implemented. Even more have been proposed, and other forms of harmful legislation that I will discuss in just a moment. It has been difficult to provide hope in the midst of what seems to be immense darkness. It's been challenging to encourage folks to stay strong when it seems like things are heading in a tumultuous direction. As organizational leaders and community advocates, it is important for us to understand these challenges that sexual and gender minorities face. Whether you are aware of it or not, the work of your organization involves or impacts LGBTQIA plus people. Queer folks are present in every aspect of society. And as such, I propose 3 ways in which nonprofit leaders, board members, and other justice workers can navigate the current sociopolitical landscape. And they are educate, validate, and advocate. First, I urge you to educate yourself on the issues. What do you know about LGBTQIA plus identities? If there are letters in that acronym that you don't understand, now is a good time to learn. The worksheet and handout that accompanies this workshop lists a link to the UC website that has a list of varying sexual and gender identities and expressions for you to review. Even if you feel that you have a good grasp on queer identities, there is always room to expand your understanding as our collective knowledge of sexual and gender identities expands. Now, I encourage you to do some own research on your own before asking minoritized individuals to educate you about their experiences. Then, when you are provided the opportunity to learn directly from LGBTQIA plus individuals, listen with grace and a genuine desire to learn. A person's story is a gift. We should always accept them with humility and gratitude. I also ask that you become familiar with the federal and state laws governing your organization as it pertains to the rights of LGBTQIA plus people. Over the past several years, hundreds of anti-LGBTQ bills have been introduced by legislators in over half of the United States, with many specifically targeting transgender and gender diverse people. According to their website, as of this recording, The ACLU is tracking nearly 600 anti-LGBTQ bills across the country that have been introduced just this year. Now, so far, 120 have been defeated, but 66 of them have become law, while another 400 or so are making their way through the legislative process. Certain states, including Texas, Florida, Tennessee, and Alabama, have been particularly aggressive in passing restrictive laws. In the accompanying worksheet, there are links to a few resources such as the ACLU, the Human Rights Campaign, and other organizations that track the progression of such bills and warn about the dangers of the legislation in certain states. These laws restrict access to healthcare for transgender people. They limit accessibility to public facilities such as public restrooms. They make it difficult for transgender people to obtain identification materials to match their identity and presentation. They prohibit LGBTQIA plus individuals from engaging in certain activities such as sports. They prohibit age-appropriate discussions of LGBTQIA plus people and issues in our schools and educational institutions. They require teachers to out their students to parents, even if doing so could pose a danger to them. And many bills and laws seek to conflate the definitions of sex and gender as exclusively binary. And all of this is in an attempt to eradicate LGBTQIA plus people from our society. Cases have already made their way to the Supreme Court, such as the recently decided United States v. Scrimetti, which granted Tennessee the right to ban medical care for transgender youth and penalize medical providers who perform these services. And another example, the Fulton v. City of Philadelphia case, which has allowed certain religious exemptions that could and will undermine protections for LGBTQIA plus people in services and employment. These statistics are harrowing, and I fear things will get worse before they will get better. Nonprofits and justice advocates, community organizers must monitor pending legislation and rulings to anticipate the impacts on your communities, your organizations, and their operations. And this brings me to my second focus area: validate. Politically, judicially, socially, and personally, things are very challenging for queer and gender diverse people. The current climate presents very real danger to LGBTQIA plus individuals and families. Many of these bills and laws, such as the one passed into law in Tennessee, prevent transgender people from getting access to life-saving health care. Families report being denied coverage or providers refusing treatment. This is not a theoretical issue. This is not hypothetical. It's actually happening, and it endangers lives and well-being. Without access to care, people will suffer and many will die. Some laws go further, criminalizing gender affirming care or even one's public gender expression. Examples include drag bans or bans on quote unquote impersonating gender identities. Other examples include bathroom bills that seek to criminalize individuals who use restrooms that some folks feel they should not be using simply because of their identity. This means that simply living authentically puts many individuals at risk of legal repercussions. The idea that existence itself can become criminalized is alarming, but it is a harsh reality in some states. These legal restrictions ripple out even into the private sector. For example, employers may hesitate to provide inclusive benefits for risk of the fear of legal pushback. Anti-LGBTQ legislation may threaten housing rights, and social service organizations may be uncertain about serving LGBTQIA plus clients. In addition, perhaps more dangerously, this hostile legal and socio-political climate has emboldened harassment, discrimination, and violence. Hate crimes against LGBTQIA plus individuals, especially transgender people of color, are rising. The psychological toll these bills have on folks is immense. And the result of this legislation is widespread exclusion that will have detrimental impacts for the whole of society. I will admit that I was not always as educated as I am now. In fact, I was quite ignorant. I would hear some of my queer friends and colleagues talk about these dangers. And they would talk about perhaps escaping from certain more conservative states to other states that are a bit more progressive for fear of losing access to their health care or having their unions invalidated or having their existence become criminalized. And I will admit that I thought that those views and those perspectives were alarmist. Now I think it is important to say that people are not overreacting. The dangers are very real. The concerns are valid. Many have feared these scenarios, but seeing them unfold can feel surreal and painful. So I ask you to acknowledge that fear and trauma that these policies cause and offer compassionate support. Listen to LGBTQIA plus people. Make yourself available to them. Identify yourself as a safe space, as an ally, as an advocate. Have empathy for the challenges they face. Do not dismiss their concerns as conspiracy theories because they are not. Do not try to minimize their feelings. They have every right to be afraid. Frankly, we all do. But this fear need not be paralyzing. We can and must act. This leads to my final focus area: advocate. What can nonprofit leaders do? Advocacy and support are more vital than ever, especially from allies and organizational leaders. Your platforms, policies, and your actions send messages that matter. It is important that you know where you stand and that others know where you stand. You should be able to clearly articulate your core values individually and your values as an organization. These values should guide your policies, decisions, actions. These sorts of policies, when made public, may also encourage other organizations, other ministries, other groups to consider their own values and to make public commitments toward LGBTQIA plus advocacy and inclusion. This is why organizations like Alliance Q emphasize that ministries and organizations should have comprehensive non-discrimination policies that explicitly protect LGBTQIA plus people. These policies aren't just paperwork. They're not just a box to check. They are commitments, dare I say covenants, that shape organizational culture and ensure equitable practices in hiring, in services, and in our justice work. Now, advocacy looks different for everyone and every organization. It's crucial to know your lane. You might be able to engage directly with lawmakers and urge them to oppose harmful legislation, but I understand that this is not feasible or preferable for all contexts. Instead, you may be able to offer direct services to benefit LGBTQIA plus individuals. You may be able to offer a space, whether physical or virtual, for LGBTQIA plus individuals to gather safely. You may have the financial resources or other material resources at your disposal to put towards efforts to assist and support LGBTQ plus individuals and organizations that are directly involved in the work, justice, equity, and inclusion for sexual and gender minorities. In addition to knowing your particular lane, it is also important to name your limits. Be clear about how far you are prepared to go. Know what it is that you can and cannot do. Know and be able to name which risks you are and are not willing to take. Are you willing to advocate strongly for LGBTQIA plus people, even if it upsets some of your stakeholders? If the law requires you to do harm to sexual and gender minorities, are you willing to challenge those laws? Are you prepared to face the consequences of disregarding them? Now, I cannot tell you how to answer any of these questions, but the fact is, you should consider and reflect and be able to answer such questions. At the very least, I ask that you do not let harmful actions or implicit biases that impact LGBTQIA plus individuals negatively to go unchallenged. If you witness marginalization, whether intentional or inadvertent, speak up and correct it immediately. Silence is violence. Silence allows marginalization to become normalized and pervasive. As you engage with others, remember to center your core values, whether your individual values or your organizational values, as this keeps advocacy sustainable and grounded. And it provides a compass for authentic and lasting change. It is important that we do not allow fear to hinder us from acting. And I think that one way for us to begin to affect lasting change is to be able to have these authentic types of conversations, to really think about what it is that we believe, what it is that we value, and how these values impact and influence how we move forward. So on the accompanying workshop worksheet handout, there are a list of questions for reflection about how you can educate yourself on important issues, how you validate your own feelings and your own fears, as well as those of the broader LGBTQIA plus community and the community at large. And finally, there are reflection questions for you to consider on how you will tangibly stand up for sexual and gender minorities. Friends, I ask that you let justice, compassion, dignity, and equity guide your actions rather than fear. In closing, the legal environment for LGBTQIA plus people is shifting rapidly, often in ways that create new challenges for all. Educating ourselves about these challenges, validating the experiences and fears of those impacted, and responding with clear, values driven advocacy is essential. As organizational leaders and justice workers and advocates, you are often on the front lines of community support and social change. Your commitment can help protect and empower LGBTQIA plus people in these difficult times. Thank you for your attention and for your continued commitment to justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion.